new office here in the next couple of years, hopefully.
Yeah.
So
That'll be
I'll have
nice.
the
Your own little podcasting corner that has a background.
yeah, have a some good ambiance like your office does with
Yeah.
the map, the zebra, and everything else in the background. The bears
I need
hanging
a
from the window.
I need a pedestal big mule deer right there.
Yeah,
That
I
would
want
be
to have my Marco Polo pedestal mount in my office someday.
Yeah, I bet you do. On our last podcast, did you watch on YouTube the last one that Gary and I did on bears?
I didn't watch the video, but I went back and listened to it right after you guys published it.
Go look at it just to see his background because I have bears hanging back over here with the lights on. You can't really see him very well in the video, but just
I
the
can see him.
height. And Gary has a wall, like a barnwood wall right behind him,
Hmm.
and a whole bunch of grizzly and black bear hides hanging behind him, wolf hide,
Yeah,
fox hide. And it just was a really cool background, I thought, for a
yeah,
podcast.
that absolutely is. Have you been up to Gary's office before at his house?
Yeah, a few times. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm actually thinking about doing the same thing that he did now temporarily, where his garage is essentially converted to like his office, where he just sealed off the actual garage door, but then it's now just a big office room, and he built like the face of like a barn patio on one side of the wall, and he's got like a little office corner over there, the main office in the middle of the room that him and his wife work in. All of
Yep,
his mounts and trophies mounted everywhere. It's super cool.
it is.
And it's tasteful
It's
too.
it is, and it's functional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I with when it comes to taxidermy, I like more of a minimalist approach throughout the home,
So do
but
I.
then a very concentrated approach in the trophy room and office, you know?
Yeah.
Like when I'm in the office or the trophy room, I want to feel like I'm in like a little Cabela's showroom where it's just all right there,
Yeah, it's all memories. You
condensed.
walk into that room and you get just bombarded by memories.
Exactly. But like a Euro mount on the wall, a couple mounts here and there throughout the house. I think that's extremely tasteful. But like when you get like 20 deer heads in the living room, it's just like,
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
a
little
little
too
much.
much.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a right and wrong way to do it, I think.
My opinions on that have evolved. When I was younger, I mounted
More the
everything,
better.
and the more the
Yeah.
better. I had lived in a
Yeah.
tiny little house, and you know, mounted elk took up the entire wall, floor to ceiling, because
Yep.
it's smart ceilings, and yeah, just
Yep.
hang red elk
Exactly.
in the living room. But yeah, so I've been able to evolve there, but I'm with you for sure.
Yeah. But your office is super well put together. I love that. The map in the back, the zebra, the wildebeest, the bear's little end table painting. It all is just well put together. I
Thank
like
you.
that.
Thank you. I have
Yeah.
bigger plans for it, but it definitely works for now.
Yeah. Goals.
Goal.
Goals.
That's it. Never done. Well,
Goals.
speaking of goals, I want someday to go to Russia and hunt bears like you did last spring, right?
Yeah. I think I can tell you with certainty that if you go to Russia for your first brown bear, it's going to ruin every other brown bear hunt you ever go on
You-
because you've been on a few brown bear hunts.
Just seeing your pictures and hearing a little bit about this story that I have has already done it.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally the Disneyland of brown bear hunting. I mean, where you go to Alaska and an average brown bear hunt is 10 days and usually have some opportunities, but nowadays at least it's not that realistic to go to Alaska on one 10-day brown bear hunt and say I want to hold out for a 10-footer or bust. It's
Yeah.
not realistic to say that. It's realistic to say that I want to shoot a mature boar or go home empty. And you should have an opportunity in 10 days. I mean, the odds across all of our brown bear hunts with our clients, typically 80 to 90% opportunities and kill rates, depending on the area, season, and year to year. But you can realistically go to Russia right now and say, I want to go take two 10-foot brown bears
It's
with
crazy.
certainty.
That's
You
just
can legitimately do it. And that's one of those things that's such a lofty thing to say. I didn't 100% believe it until I went there and saw it with my own eyes. It was one of those
neither did
like
I.
I've read the black and white books. I've read about Russia. I've listened to podcasts about it, watched videos about it, But I've always thought in the back of my mind, like, okay, this might be bullshit, right? How can it possibly be that good? Like, how can it possibly have that many bears and that kind of trophy quality? It just seems unbelievable, right?
The biological possibility of having that many gigantic predators so condensed in one area is weird to me, but it's
It
just the
is.
food's there. That's the reason
It
why,
is.
but still, it's incredible.
It is, and I learned so much about the biological background of the bears there too while I was there, and we'll definitely dive into this more. But what's interesting about that is their main food source is a coastal diet, but bears live interior there as well on the Kamchatka Peninsula. But the bear density there is so high, one of their primary food sources is other bears.
Really.
Yeah, the rate of cannibalism there is just unbelievable. While we were there on our 6 day hunt, which we only hunted 4 days of, by the way, spoiler, we found 6 or 7 bear caches with dead bears. We found dens that were dug out. Typically, they were like sub 9 foot boars that were killed by a bigger boar. And then we did find a couple of dens that were dug out where sows and cubs were killed. But the
Right.
timing of this hunt is right before the sows and cubs start emerging from the den. So that was another thing biologically that'll blow your mind. In 4.5 days of the 6 full hunt day schedule, we saw 86 brown bears, and 7 were
Oh,
not boars.
wow.
7 were not boars. I know, mind blowing, right? But just
Yeah.
the boar density, the bear density itself, the style of hunting, the trophy quality, the success rates, I mean, all of it, it's mind blowing. Like, it's literally, I mean, it's one step past Disneyland of brown bear hunting. It's the never never land of brown bear hunting. So
Sounds like
I still can't believe it. And every time I tell this story, I kind of like relive the experience a little bit. But with that many brown bears too, and the rate of cannibalism they have, they also don't get that old. And so in Alaska, it's not too uncommon to shoot a boar that's over 15 years old. And there's even been documented cases of 20 to 25 plus years old. In Kamchatka, you're probably not going to see a boar, let alone shoot a boar over the age of 15. Because once they get past that prime age of, let's call it 7 to 10, maybe 10 to 12 on the top end, they've begun to regress and they can't keep up with all the boars that are in their prime around them, and they end up getting killed and consumed. So pretty
wow.
wild that bears can get that big with that short of a lifespan and in that density. Yeah. So
For sure.
that probably answers one of the questions you had right before we started the podcast of how can people shoot that many bears? Well,
Exactly. That's doesn't
limited
make sense
permits
to
and
me.
no shortage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Limited permits and no shortage because there's no
And you
hunting
think
pressure
that's sustainable?
with the level of permits they have. Yes.
Okay.
And so, with our operator taking, let's see, 3 shifts of 4 hunters, 12 hunters on average. Hunters kill 2 bears each, less than 25 bears for an entire concession. That's, I mean, almost the size of my home state of Iowa. Yeah. We're both pretty intrigued by Russia. That's pretty obvious. The biggest topic about Russia that comes up in every single conversation is safety. Is it safe? Am I going to go to a Russian prison? The questions that have come up in conversation talking about Russia over the last couple of years, some have been surprising, but really none of them should be because as Americans, we don't really know what Russia is like. I mean, there's currently like an embargo on Russia where our credit cards won't work in Russia. You can't get direct flights from the US into Russia. We're kind of locked away, a world away from Russia. And we as Americans, we really don't know what it's like truly in Russia. All we hear about is the Russian-Ukraine war, communism, corruption, this stuff. Well, I'm here to tell you that almost all of it's completely not true. And the perception is not reality after going there. And so, is it safe? Yes, absolutely. At no point in time did I ever feel unsafe on my Russian bear hunt. The tense moments were going through customs and security, coming in and out of the country. I mean, just not really knowing what to expect. Spoiler alert, I don't speak fluent Russian. Working with the customs and passport control, there was obviously a language barrier that we had to get through. but I can tell you it was no more difficult than going into Canada. There was a little bit of bureaucracy coming and going from the country. When you're going through passport control, they see you're American and like, ooh, we don't have many of these come through. Let's double check. So they take your passports in the other room. They come back a half hour to an hour later after you're sitting in the chair in the open lobby, by the way. I was fully expecting to like have to sit across the table from somebody and be interrogated or have them go through my phone or something. But no, none of that. It's no big deal. There was just a little bit of bureaucracy with them doing background checks and checking, making sure that we're, I mean, not spies or whatever coming into the country. And I mean, sat in a chair for half hour to an hour. They came back out. They asked us the 5 questions that they ask when you go to Canada. Have you been to Canada before? What is the purpose of your travel? Do you have firearms? Where are you going to be staying? Who are you going to be with? Like that kind of stuff. Like very,
Right.
very simple. They said, okay, thank you. Enjoy your stay here in Russia. You're free to go. It was that simple.
And it was a visa as opposed to a passport.
Correct. You do have to have a Russian visa to go to Russia. That's important to know. You can get the 1 year or the 3 year visa. When I purchased mine, I went ahead and got the 3 year visa because I also want to go back and do a snow sheep hunt. But that might
Mhm.
take a little longer than 3 years to get back there. That's a long term goal, but nice to have the option if it's there. You pay a couple $100 extra for the 3 year versus the 1 year visa. To get your visa, it's very simple. Our outfitter concierge that whole process. You literally print out a form that the outfitter sends you, fill it out, put your passport in an envelope, overnight it to the RNG in New York. About a week later, you get your passport back with a visa attached. That was it. It's either confirmed or
He's
denied.
very good at he's very good at making travel easy. I went on my
Hmm.
Kazakhstan through him, and the travel process he made as easy as you possibly could.
Absolutely. Between his preferred travel agent, between, I mean, his right hand man, his secretary staff that does all the pre and post hunt logistics paperwork where they make everything so simple, simple to the point where print this off, sign it, send it back to me. Don't worry about anything else, and I'll let you know.
They
This is
don't
an
do that.
outfitter, yeah. And to point out to Corey's point, Corey's been to Kazakhstan with our Central Asia partner. I've
Yeah.
been to Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan and Russia with our Central Asia partner, which is partially what kind of stemmed me going to Russia last year. Last year, we had some openings in Russia, and this is a hunt I've always wanted to go for myself, but it's really hard to squeeze in a big trip like that, obviously. And so, and then also, I was hosting our clients in Argentina, which if you are internationally traveling right before you go to Russia, it can complicate some things. Doesn't make it impossible, but it can complicate some things, mostly due to the fact that you need to send your passport to the RNG in New York before you go to Russia. Like I
Okay.
couldn't send my passport to the RNG in New
You have
York
to send
before I
your
went to
physical.
Argentina. Yeah, I had to send my physical passport to the RNG,
Mm,
and
wow.
there was a chance that I wouldn't get my passport back before leaving for Argentina, and I'm not going to risk my obligation to our clients in Argentina for a personal trip in Russia. So I actually was in discussion about Russia going personally before I even left for Argentina in this time last year, February, because the hunt was in March in Argentina. But then when I got back from Argentina on a Sunday, I got a phone call on Monday from the outfitter. Just said, "Are you still interested in going to Russia? I just had a spot drop out. I'd really like you to go. What's it going to take?" Obviously, wasn't planning for that financially, so I had to stretch things on my end a bit, but said, "Hey, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's do it." So I said, "Okay, I need you to go overnight your passport tonight to the RNG. Let's start working on your visa." So I literally started planning Russia with about 30 days notice.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's cool.
literally
Cool. You can get
committed
it
to
done.
it and got my visa.
It seems like it would be a bigger process. Our what we hear about Russia, you would think there would be tons of red tape.
There are things to get through. There's the visa, there is the travel, and then there's also the weapons permit. So those are the three main things there. You need to have a passport with no less than 6 months till expiration. You need to have your visa approved. There have been people who have had their visa denied, by the way. Typically, it's if you have convictions or if you are a, let's say, political radical.
Seems to make
Believe
sense to me.
which believe it or not, there's people that are. There's actually one of the clients that had his visa. revoked was because he has a personal blog site regarding what's going on in the world right now. And he was seen as a political radical. That's how I got a spot. And then weapon travel and weapons permit. The travel is kind of tricky because we have to book the travel to Istanbul through our travel agent, but then the flights from Istanbul into Moscow have to be purchased from the Russian in country operator because you or I can't hop online right now with our credit card and purchase an Aeroflot commercial travel airline ticket. We can't. You have to use a Russian payment method. So that part's a little tricky, but again, the outfitter handles all of that. And then weapons permits. You either have to bring your own weapon or you have to rent one while you're there. There are two different permit applications, and we can talk about that too. You can bring your own weapon to Russia and ammunition, not a big
Did
deal.
you?
I did not. I used theirs. Short notice planning, just wanted to
Yeah.
travel light. And also, after going there and seeing the whole travel program, I'd recommend using their rifle because you show up to camp, you have your weapons rental permit, and you are permitted to rent your firearm from your guide because the person you're renting it from has to be present. So you rent it from your guide. And they were fine rifles. They're like Seikos, Blazers, Leupold scopes. I mean, they even had Hornady ammunition, like what you and I would go to Cabela's or Shields or Sportsman Warehouse and buy. So they
Wow.
literally had the same off the shelf setup that I would go piece together affordably to go shoot a brown bear, anyways. So why would you bring your own? I mean, unless you're
So
kind of
you're
a
not
gun
shooting
snob.
long distance precision shooting. Yeah.
No, the farthest shot was literally 125 yards, and the
Yeah.
closest was about 30. So it's point and shoot weapons, not real complicated. And if you do have a weapon that you bring with you, it's not that big of a deal, but it should be taken into consideration that every single one of these control points when you travel throughout the country, you need to arrive about 2 hours earlier, which can detract away from some of the sightseeing, the travel, the souvenir shopping, additional trips that you have to make to the hotel to go secure your firearm in between those things. And honestly, I think that the firearm would have detracted away from the cultural experience traveling through Russia just because you wouldn't have been able to do as much touring and sightseeing.
Right. Right.
So, for that reason alone, I would say just use their weapon.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Unless I was going on a hunt that required precision shooting, you
Long
know,
range shooting.
long range shooting, I would
Yeah.
just use the outfitter. I always choose to use the outfitter's gun.
Yep, exactly. And, to that point in Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Pakistan, those big mountain Ovis and Capra type hunts, I'm an advocate of hunters bringing their own firearm and making sure they have a really nice long range shooting setup and proper training in advance and 100% bring your firearm, your ammunition. This is going to be some of the more technical, difficult shooting you'll ever do in your hunting career in Central Asia. Polar opposite with Russia. It's point blank shooting, and they had good setups. I have no reservations about using their firearms, and the permitting process is a little easier. So just hit the easy button on that one. So Russia is it safe? Yes, absolutely. We had zero issues, and I'm actually prior military service, and they didn't make a big deal about that. So that's something that's come up. I've had a lot of hunters whose wives have been concerned about getting stuck in Russia, something or other. Well, one, the travel's safe, zero question. Is it safe for an American to be in Russia? Absolutely. Just don't commit a felony while you're there. That's really important. That probably leaves more questions, but let's just say don't commit a felony while you're there.
Well, seems kind of
Hunters
obvious.
hunters who have gone to Russian jail have committed felonies. So let's
Yeah.
and I shouldn't say hunters, I should say Americans who have gone to a Russian jail in the last decade are those who have committed felonies. So don't do that.
Don't take controlled substances.
Yes, don't do that,
Yeah.
and you'll be just fine. So safety, let's check that box. But that's always the most important thing, right? Why Russia? We touched on this a little bit earlier. So Russia and Asia in general has a certain mystique. You hear about these just insane animal densities, trophy quality, all of it. Well, those are the reasons why you go to Russia. Kamchatka, Russia for brown bear is like Alaska was 100, 150 years ago when it was still owned by Russia. Just the fairy tale land of trophy brown bear hunting, the density, the trophy quality, it's just incredible. like I told you, Corey, I did not believe that it was going to be as good as it was until I actually got there. And I had heard all the stories. I've met with the outfitter, I've met with the in country operator, I've talked to hunters who had been there, and I still wasn't 100% convinced that it was as good as they said it was. But once I got there, it was even better. Like,
That's
it's hard
crazy.
to describe the level of excitement and pure thrill of hunting brown bears in Russia. Hands down, the most thrilling experience of my life and the top
Yeah.
adventure of my young lifetime so far. Literally
Yeah.
flying to the end of the world and back, hunting trophy brown bears on pristine wilderness dirt that hadn't seen a human more than once a year with the native Idelman
Right.
guides, just surrounded by bears was unbelievably cool. Like by
Yeah.
day two, the other hunters in camp and I that I hunted with, we kept saying to each other, like, does your stomach hurt? It's like, yeah, mine too. There was so much thrill and adrenaline and excitement constantly that our stomachs actually hurt from adrenaline.
Wow. That's,
Because,
huh?
yeah, I mean, just I've never felt anything like it, and I think that that's why people get so addicted to like dangerous game hunting. You know, like hunting buffalo
Yeah.
and Africa, big cats in Africa, elephants in Africa, all that. Like just that pure rush of adrenaline. It's just
Mhm.
unbelievable. And you know, brown bear hunting in
But the
Alaska
difference here
is
is it's sustained. It's sustained for the entire hunt, it sounds like. It's
yes,
not moments of that
yeah,
adrenaline dump. It's like
it's
the whole
sustained.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
it's sustained. And obviously, there's peaks and valleys to that too, but it's sustained thrill and excitement just throughout the whole hunt. It's so cool. And hunting brown bears in Alaska, you've always heard the old term of, it's 90% pure boredom, 10% pure thrill. Well, Russia is like 90% pure thrill and 10% skinning bears. I mean, there was no boredom, period.
I've been on two ground bear hunts, and both of them were pretty boring, honestly.
Yeah.
They really
And
were.
that's not a bad thing. That I think a big part of
Disappointing.
that's the style of the hunting and the density
Yeah.
of animals you're working with.
You're
Because
sitting on the tundra. Awesome.
in Alaska, there's a lot of glassing, and you're trying to keep movement small because you're sitting in one fixed location, not going to the bears. Whereas in Russia, you're hunting them at the perfect time where you have enough snow to get around on snow machines, not so deep that you can't, but not melted off to the point where the bears have kind of like moved off away from these areas and they're not as concentrated. It's just this perfect timing, the perfect recipe to be extremely efficient hunting big bears.
Right.
A lot of these big bears too, that I don't think they hibernate. They had so much fat on them, to be honest with you, that the oldest bears I don't think hibernated there. And so, you're just hunting giant bears in these pockets with high concentrations and doing it so efficiently where you're cruising around on snow machine and it's like every 5-10 minutes you're seeing another bear. You're seeing 20-30 bears a day. It's just unbelievable. And with the native Idelman guides, the way that you hunt, if it's a group of four in camp, which by the way, max capacity in camp is four. If it's four, you'll hunt in pairs, two and two. If it's a group of three, like my two companions and I, then all three of you will hunt together. So all three of us were able to experience each other's brown bear kills throughout
Yeah.
the week too. So
Yeah.
not only did we each take multiple brown bears, we each got to witness and experience each other's brown bear kills too. So that was so cool, and it added to the excitement. I loved that group hunting style where we went in a rotation, the three of us, where we just established it the first day and just kept going throughout the week.
As long as nobody's an ass, it's a lot more fun to hunt that way.
Oh man, we were all equally excited for each other, and it was so funny too. It was like as the week went on, the bears kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we kept joking about it, like, "Oh, I wonder what they're going to show us tomorrow." It was kind of we were totally joking about it, but that was more just we started passing bears after the first day. We all took our first bear the first day, and they were all in like the upper 9 foot category, and then by day two, we were passing bears if they weren't over 10 or if they had a little rub on them or something. And I remember I was texting the outfitter on the inReach and said, "Yeah, we just passed another 10-foot bear and it's not even noon." And it's just
Well,
unbelievable.
do you remember right about the time you went, our other consultant, Russ, he was working on booking another group. I don't know if you remember this or not. And he called me and he's like, the outfitter is telling me he's guaranteeing 10-foot plus bears if they hold out.
Yeah.
He's guaranteeing. He goes, he is so full of shit. There's no way anyone can guarantee 10-foot plus bears. And I'm like, well, luckily Kyle's going on this hunt. It seems crazy to me too to make that bold of a statement. That seems
Hmm.
very bold. Let's see how what it's like when Kyle gets back. You come back and told me just little bits of this story, but he lost the booking because he was unwilling to, which is good. That's the right call for him.
So
But
anyone that thinks this is bullshit, look at this. I keep this on my desk. Can you see that, Cory?
yes, barely because it's buffering, so it's a little blurry. But I see the numbers 10, 3. I can 10 and 11/16 and 10 and 3/8.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This is the piece of cardboard that I had with me in bear camp that when I wrote down the measurements myself with the Russian guide to prove that it wasn't bullshit. This piece of cardboard right
And
here.
you witnessed them not pulling the legs and stretching it. It was a
Yes,
pure, it was a
and you
pure
want
good stretch.
yeah, you want to hear the funny thing?
Yep.
They were measuring them short.
Were they really?
They were measuring them short by 3 to 6 inches because the Russians, the way that at least in this camp, their method, as I pointed out, there's the American method and there's the Russian method. The Russian method is to measure pad to pad on the width. The American method is the tip of the claw for the
Yeah.
width. And then nose to tail was consistent between both. They were measuring the bears without the claws.
So those measurements that you had were pad to pad.
Oh
Wow.
no, those were those were claw to claw. But
Okay.
when
Okay.
they were measuring them, they were actually measuring them short. The first day when we shot all upper 9-foot bears, the first day we were looking at them and we were like, I wonder if those make 10. And I said, hey Tisha, would you mind showing me how you measured them? And he measured them. I said, hey Tisha, you're leaving out the claws, and I pointed it out to him, and then we did a correct measurement, and then they were all like just under 10, between like 9, 7, and 10,
That's a
and then the
giant.
next day,
Oh,
oh, it's huge, it's
you don't
huge.
even realize how big that is. I've
No,
seen
that I didn't,
seen a 10-4 bear, put my hands on it, and holy crap, that thing was insane.
yeah, they're magical. They're so big, and that first day we shot upper nines. That the next day and the following we shot only 10 or above.
Wow.
But that piece of cardboard was from the second day. I wrote that down, and I was physically measuring the bears with the guide because I wanted to prove a point too.
Right.
Again, like a big part of my motivation going on this hunt was I wanted to see it for myself with my own eyes and honestly prove a point. It's
Right.
like if I can do it, anybody can do it. The
So
safety,
that's
the travel, the
on the
hunting, all of
cardboard.
it.
You have an 11+ foot bear, a legit.
No, that was no, we didn't shoot a 11-foot bear. This is a one of them says 10-foot 1 and 1/16. One says 10-foot 3 inch and 5/8.
It was buffering. I
When
couldn't read it very well. I thought it said 11.
yeah, the one that said 10-foot 1 inch and 1/16, that kind of looks like an 11. But
Yeah,
yeah, again, we're not here to inflate anything. I'm telling you exactly what it is. I measured them myself with a tape measure and documented myself. So
that's cool.
nothing more, nothing less than what it is. And that's the thing. That's the thing about a skull size, a bear's hide square, nose to tail, claw to claw. These things just are what they are. You can't really make them more or less than what they are. That was my 9/7 bear right there.
If for people just listening, if you go to YouTube, I'm showing the Kyle's bears. That was your small one.
Yeah. Yeah, small. That was my 10:30 a.m. first day bear, and my hunting partner, companion in camp, Mike, he actually passed on that bear,
Uh-huh.
and because it was his turn to shoot, and me, I was like, hey, show me good bears, and I'll be happy. And Mike, he really wanted to hold out for only 10 or above, So the lead guide, he turned and kind of ran back to me and asked me, "Hey, do you like this bear? It's a good bear." And I asked him, "How big do you think this bear is?" And he said, 9, maybe close to 10, but probably not 10, but really, really good bear. And I looked at it, I saw the background, and what popped in my head was, man, that thing looks like an absolute unit. And look at the background.
Yeah.
My God,
It's
I
such a
wanted that
cool
bear.
picture. Yeah,
Yeah. And
how his
that's,
legs out like that, his legs out in front of him. It's just that's a
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can see the hill like back to my right, your left. And then,
Yeah.
we're kind of down in a ravine. He was at the top of the ravine when I shot, and then it dumped him and he rolled down the
Yeah.
ravine. So we were actually on the top of the bluff that's above us when I shot that bear, but we still were able to get some of that background. Yeah, there was Jim. That's my bear again. That's Jim's bear. That bear went 10-9. I think that one did. That was the biggest bear of the trip right there. His
Really?
hide was almost completely black, like dark, dark chocolate black. Everything but his neck and head. That was the biggest bear of the trip right there. Yeah. That was a bear
Yeah.
taken the year before.
To stop share. I always forget how to stop the share. There we
Yeah.
go.
Oh, I could go on about the pictures.
Yeah.
So why Russia? Game density, trophy quality, adventure, all of it. It's everything they say it is, if not more, once you get there. The average success rate on this hunt is 200%, which blows minds. The
Yeah.
average number of bears hunters take on this hunt is 2, and some hunters take more. You're allowed to take more. That's a huge selling point. And you can go there and legitimately take potentially 2 10-foot brown bears door to door with a tanned hide back to your taxidermist, hides back to your taxidermist for less than the cost of one brown bear hunt in Alaska. So the value is unmatched, the success rate is unmatched, the trophy quality is unmatched, the game density is unmatched, and it's safe to go. The
Wow.
drawbacks, long travel. And I really want to make sure we talked about that today too. The travel is long. This hunt program is an 18-day hunt program with 8 of those days in bear camp, 6 full hunting days. And so starting out in the United States, you've booked your hunt, you have your passport and your visa squared away, decided weapon yes or no, you're all packed and ready to go. Leaving from the United States on Turkish Airlines, you go to Istanbul. And then once you're in Istanbul, you overnight there, just the hotel, airport, Yotel, I think it's called. Super easy, very nice hotel. Absolutely gorgeous airport, by the way, if you haven't traveled through Istanbul.
I'm sure it
That
is.
airport it's something out of the future. It's so
Yeah.
cool. So many cool shops there too if you get a chance.
Yeah.
But you
It is.
overnight there. Yeah. And that's an easy flight too. It's like
Mhm.
depending on where you're leaving in the United States, it's anywhere between 10 and 12 hours depending on which hub you're leaving from in the United States. Like Denver, Chicago, Dallas, Fort Worth, JFK, Seattle, I think all have direct flights to Istanbul on Turkish Airlines. So easy flight. I've done that flight half a dozen times now. Super easy. And once you're in Istanbul, you overnight at the hotel there. Again, super easy. Catch some rest after your flight. And then from there, you have a short flight to Moscow. That flight is about the same length of travel as if you were flying from Istanbul to, say, Bishkek or Almaty, Kazakhstan, or Dushanbe, Tajikistan. It's like a 4 or 5 hour flight from Istanbul, just another short leg. Now, once you arrive in Moscow, like I mentioned earlier, that was the only tense time of the whole trip, just because it's like, well, we have landed on Russian soil. There's no going back now, right? And that was pretty unique feeling going through Russian customs, but it was no big deal. Once you get through the passport control, the in-country operator and his head guide are right there on the other side of passport control. They sent us a selfie on WhatsApp right before we got there. Just said, "Hey, come look for us. We'll be there, ready to collect your baggage." We get through passport control. They're standing right there. The in-country operator and his right-hand man, they both speak great English, and let's just say they are full of personality. They are some of the most entertaining and fun people to be around I've ever been around on any hunting trip. The gentleman's name is Oleg. I don't mind saying who it is. His name's Oleg. He's like a 6.5 foot tall, silver haired Russian and dresses like a stylish 25-year-old. I mean, just the guy he is one of one. He's just one of the coolest, most interesting people I've ever met. Fun fact, I think he personally guided Rex Baker, a ton of other famous names in the hunting industry throughout the last 3, 4 decades. I mean, he's probably in the top three, if not the top one, well known Russian PHs, put it that way. So you're in good hands, put it that way. So Oleg and his head guide, Tisha, they help us collect our baggage and says, okay, gentlemen, we're going to go drop bags at the hotel and then we're going to go do some touring if you're up to it. And of course, let's do that. So we go to the hotel, we drop our bags. Really nice hotel just outside the airport again. Convenience within 10 minutes of the airport because you'll fly from Moscow to Kamchatka, a port called Petropavlovsk, Kamchatka in southern Kamchatka the following day. But that whole day is just reserved for touring in Moscow. So you arrive early morning in Moscow and you have an entire day in Moscow to go tour. He took us to see the Red Square, the cathedral, local pubs and restaurants. We did some souvenir shopping. It was just such a wonderful day. And then back to the hotel, had some drinks with the guys and a nice dinner at the hotel restaurant. Wonderful day. And then the following morning, there was no rush. Literally told us, I know you guys are going to be tired. Go ahead and sleep in as long as you want. I'll be here at 10 a.m. We don't have to be at the airport till 1 or 2. We'll just get there a couple hours early. It'll be easy. So went back to the Moscow International Airport. I kid you not, less than 30 minutes, we were through customs and at our gate. So super easy. But Tisha, his right hand man and head guide, was going to be the camp manager for the week and had a firearm to bring to camp with him. Oleg did point out to us Tisha is going to go to the airport 3 hours earlier than us to make sure that he has ample time for them to do the weapons paperwork, go through all of that. And we actually passed him on our way through the airport. He was at, over one of those little side rooms doing the weapon check and custom stuff. And Oleg just said, hey, this is why I mainly recommend that you just rent our rifles. It's going to save you so much time. And as you can see, we got through customs and security in about 15 minutes. So he's like, take that for what it's worth, gentlemen.
Yeah.
So Oleg personally walked us all the way to our gate. From there, we went with Tisha. Oleg had to stay in Moscow to receive the next week of hunters coming in. And so we went forward with Tisha to Petropavlovsk, Kamchatka. That flight was the only flight that really surprised me. So flying from Moscow to Kamchatka, I think you literally fly through 9 to 10 time zones of Russia. That is how big Russia is. Just to put it in perspective, that flight was almost as long as the US to Istanbul flight.
No kidding.
Yeah, literally 9 to 10 time zones wide. That's how wide Russia is.
Wow.
So Russia is just unperceivably big. And so flying east to Kamchatka, you land in Kamchatka and you're legit like 3 hours by plane away from Anchorage at this point. You've now flown all the way across the world to the edge of the earth.
You could just go to
Yeah,
Alaska
well,
over there.
Oh, that's the thing. As soon as the whole war nonsense gets over with over there, then there'll be flights from Anchorage over to Kamchatka, I'm sure. But until then, this is the travel plan, and this is the way to do it.
Was the Kamchatka airport an international airport?
It was considered an international airport.
I didn't realize that.
Yep. The travel plan that they have organized going through Istanbul is the best travel plan for hunters, put it that way. And it's the most reliable way to get there without any incident or issue. And that is mostly just based around luggage, really. You fly Turkish Airlines to Istanbul, and then from Istanbul to Moscow, Moscow to Petropavlovsk, you're on Aeroflot Airlines. That's the Russian commercial airlines. And by the way, these are not like rinky-dinky little planes. We're talking Boeing 7s. I mean, these are very, very nice commercial airlines. And actually, I've found that the international airlines, the customer service and quality is probably 2 to 3 notches higher than our domestic flights.
Absolutely, for sure.
Including Aeroflot. Also, the in-country operator, Oleg, when he books this travel for our hunters, he's not booking economy. He's booking like the step right below business class where you have extra leg room, you have reclining seats, these are nice flights, by the way. Like that's
Right.
probably the nicest commercial flight I've ever been on personally, because I always just book economy plus
Oh,
extra leg room, just being cheap, you know.
me
And
too.
so like these were good airlines, by the way, and this is comfortable travel. Yeah, this is not like mediocre in any way, shape, or form. It's white glove the whole way. So arriving in Petro, one of the other guides that was going to be in camp with us, one of the Idelman guides, he met us there at the airport as well, along with the ground transfer crew. They have a ground transfer set up in a van from the Petro airport up to a small town called Esso, and that's literally like a village town of like less than 50 people, and five of them are the helipad staff. So you're driving, I think it was 6 hours up to Esso, where we overnighted in a like a little cottage hotel there before flying in the helicopter the following day. So once up to Esso, grab another night sleep up there. By the way, you can grab groceries, drinks, alcohol, anything that you want for camp while you're in Petro. But once you leave Petro, you're not going to get any more groceries. It's pretty remote. But beautiful, beautiful drive through the mountains up to Esso, snow-capped mountain peaks, just incredible. The following day, wake up, had some breakfast, pretty basic. I will say that the from Esso on until you got to Petro was not a culinary experience. It's like porridge, soups, sandwich, and some fresh vegetables and snacks and stuff. Real basic once you get to camp, and once you're in Esso, it's rural Russia. I mean, it's just what to expect. So had some breakfast, had some coffee, went to the helipad, waited for the helicopter to come in. There was a little bit of fog that day in the mountains, and they told us the day before that flying into bear camp, it's either going to be a 45-minute flight or it's going to be about an hour and 10-minute flight. It depends on which route they were going to take, depending on visibility, all that stuff. So we ended up taking the 1 hour and 10-minute flight in, where we had to go around a mountain pass and kind of over open tundra to get out into bear camp. And so you're in central Kamchatka at this point, and then about an hour helicopter flight or less, depending on conditions that day, to bear camp. Once you arrive into bear camp, they have a whole area cleared out where they can land the helicopter. You're only about 200 yards from the main camp. Arriving into camp, it's what I would consider, it kind of looks like a U-shaped compound where there's 5 or 6 buildings it's U-shaped so you can pull a snow machine through it and around.
Oh,
So at the end of the day and the beginning of the day, to load hunters up on the machine, drop bears off, that kind of stuff, just pull right through like the courtyard of these outbuildings. And the outbuildings, there was a kitchen building, there was the guide building, which looked like a trapper cabin, kind of, that the guide slept in. There was a wood shed where they keep all the extra wood for firewood. That's where they store the bear skulls and bear hides after they're salted out. Then there's the clients' sleeping quarters. There's 4 beds in there, a wood stove, tons of shelves and places to hang up gear at the end of the day to dry stuff out, kind of a mud room in between. Then there was another supply cabin, and then, believe it or not, a sauna and shower building. Yeah, if you don't know already, sauna is very big in Asian culture,
yeah.
Russia included. So same for Western Europe, I think. Western and Eastern Europe, I think sauna's real big too. So yeah, that's bear camp. Very basic, but warm, comfortable, dry cabins. I wouldn't call it a lodge. I would call it cabin based, but they're good structures, warm, comfortable places to hang stuff up. And then the hunting style itself, it's riding on snow machines. You're glassing and stalking from snow machines. You cruise around, look at bears. And from this particular camp, I describe the hunting as there are 3 different hunts from this camp. There is a mountainous area, there is a coastal area, and then there's a forested area. Day 1, we went across this huge open tundra flat that's like 35 kilometers wide to go get to the mountains. And that's where we all took our first bear, was in the mountains. And you see a lot of bears there. It's a very visual hunting experience. You cruise from valley to valley. You're glassing bears up in the peaks and valleys. Once you identify a bear you want to go after, it's just a matter of intercepting it, closing the distance a little bit on foot, mostly snow machine, but the snow is so deep you don't do a whole lot of hiking. And then the following day, we went to what I call the coastal area, which is kind of semi-mountainous too. Again, like 25, 30 kilometer snow machine ride over to that area. But when you're right on the coast, you're glassing up into ravines and valleys and ridges. That's actually where we saw the most bears. But we saw probably 40 or 50 bears that day. But a lot of them were younger bears over by the coastal area, which we did kill big bears right on the coast too, by the way. But we saw the highest density of bears right on the coast. And it was because we saw a lot of younger bears up in the cliffs above the sea. So the younger bears are hiding at the very tippy top of the mountains and up in the cliffs right above the ocean.
Hiding from big boars.
Wonder why, huh? But there was big boars cruising the coast, looking for dens, looking for bears. One of the most interesting bears that we took on the trip, I think Jamie took this one. We were glassing up into these ravines off the coast after Mike had shot his bear that early morning. Mike shot a 10-foot bear first thing in the morning that day, and just a beautiful bear. But Jamie, he shot this one that was almost pure black, that just had little blonde frosted tips. And this bear, it just looked like just brick shit house of a bear. I mean, like, had that big deep snout that old boars have, where their jowls hang off, and just stocky, thick bear, and dark, and old to the
Thick
point where
with
he had
three
still.
C's.
What's that?
Thick with three C's.
Yeah, thick with three C's for sure.
Yeah.
This bear was just stocky, beautiful bear. We saw this bear kind of moving throughout the valleys and moving kind of slow, deep snow. So we closed the distance, intercepted him kind of in this pinch point where these ravines came together, and got to watch Jamie dump this bear. It was awesome. Well, then after that, we backtracked that bear's trail up through those ridges, and we found out we tracked that bear up through those ridges. That bear the day before got done pulling a den out. So that bear literally the day before or the night before killed the sow and cubs and consumed them. Yeah, it makes sense why he was moving a little slow, but pretty wild. Just everything about this place out in the Kamchatka bush is just wild like this. I mean, bears killing bears, pristine wilderness, untouched ground.
Did you see any other game, moose or anything?
Not one single print of an ungulate the entire time. I don't think a moose could exist in this concession, honestly.
Right.
Wild.
Makes sense.
Something that was, yeah, right. I mean, it was like pine martens, birds, and bears. That's it, nothing else. And one of the cool things about this coastal spot on the beach, have you ever seen those Japanese glass balls?
Yes.
This beach legitimately had about 10,000 of them on there.
What?
Yeah,
That's
I,
crazy.
it just looked green. There were so many of them. And we were looking through the binos. We're like, is that trash on the beach? What is that? But no, I mean, decades of those things washing up on the beach and nobody picking them up. Because these areas are so remote that, I mean,
Maybe
the only
centuries.
time, yeah, I mean, the only people that see this area are the Idelman guides during the trapping season over winter and one season of bear hunters, period. That is the only human traffic this entire concession in Kamchatka sees, period. And so, yeah, the beach was just littered with these glass balls. We all brought home like a little armful of them, as many as we could wrap in
No
clothes and
kidding.
stuff in our
I've
boots.
always wanted to find one of those. That's
Yeah,
cool.
well, if you ever go on this bear hunt, make sure that, one of the days you go to the more coastal area, make sure you pick up a handful of glass balls. I wish that I'd brought more back, honestly.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I digress. And then finally, the forested area, much like it sounds like it's a forested area. It's more flat and it's a little bit closer to camp because the camp is kind of nestled in the forest. That was probably my favorite way to hunt the bears because you're just straight tracking in the snow. You start out super early in the morning so that way you can get on fresh tracks, and it was so exciting. You don't see as many bears. You see maybe half a dozen to 10 bears a day versus, 20 to 40 like the other days.
Right.
But you also don't pursue a bear that isn't an absolute giant. You don't want to waste time, gas, energy, any of that on a track that is not fresh and is not absolutely huge. And so we all killed our biggest bears on the forest. And that was hands down the most exciting way to hunt them too, because you're cruising around, you look at tracks, you chat with your guide, what do you think? And the guides are more of a big, small, 9, 10, 10 plus, no doubt, that kind of communication. Very minimal. But when you could see those Edelman guides get excited over a track, and you could tell it's fresh, you're like, oh man, how close is he? And so you start following that track, and all of a sudden you're looking at the track and you realize, wait a second, this thing, it's getting a little bit wider. It's striding out. It hears us. Like we're right here. He's in here with us. And then you start seeing the track kind of crunch into the snow and break the crust of the snow because the snow freezes overnight and the bears can actually walk on top of it with their big wide pads. You start seeing the track break through the crust of the snow. You start seeing it flip up on itself. It's like, oh man, we are on him right now. And you come up over the next hill and that big son of a gun is barreling 80 yards in front of you. Oh God, the sight of a 10.5 foot brown bear barreling through the snow in front of you in the forest is unlike any feeling I've ever had. And to be that close, like when you get up to him, he's just right there and you see the back end of him barreling through the snow and just like, oh my God, it's just an absolute dinosaur of a brown bear. And so, as you can tell, that was my favorite day.
Yeah, I can see
That's
why. That'd be fun.
that's when I got my first or my biggest bear was that third day, and he ended up going I think 10-8 if I remember right, and he was also a very unique bear. I was up to be the first shooter that day, and we left at like 6:45, 6:50 from camp right as the sun's coming up. By 7:20, 7:30, we had found and killed that bear, and he was just an absolute kraken of a brown bear, as the outfitter said, and almost pure blonde. So just a very, very unique bear, very leggy, long, blocky. I mean, he had everything. Big head, long neck, long legs, white honey and ivory colored claws. The fur was like honey, blondish colored, just absolutely gorgeous bear.
Trying to find a
So
picture, but can't find one.
yeah, that's the one where I'm standing behind the bear holding his pad up like this,
Okay.
and there's trees in the background. I think it's in the brochure.
I'm looking for.
If not, we'll
Do you
make
remember
it
the
there.
number? Do you remember the brochure number?
Not off the top of my head.
I'm almost there.
Yeah, but yeah, so that bear, we closed in on him. We circled around on him. Decided obviously he was a bear we wanted to take, and intercepted him in the trees at about 30 yards. And so I took that bear at about 30 yards as well.
That's crazy.
So very, very exciting. Let's see. Not that one. Scroll over. Scroll one more. One more. Go back. That back to the right.
Oh, right there.
Yep, that's him. And then that picture of the close up of me holding a pad up to the camera where you
Uh,
could just see the claws.
right there.
That one. Yep, that's
That,
his pad right there.
wow.
You can see the color of his fur and like the honey ivory colored claws. Yeah, super cool. He's a special bear, and actually you see that picture with the hides hanging
Mm-hmm.
from the side of the barn.
Yep.
That's his hide on the side of that barn. Notice
That.
how much of his hide is laying on the ground compared to the other bears.
Yeah, I did notice that.
There's almost like a whole extra foot on that sucker hanging on the ground.
And there's probably that guy. Assume he's pushing 6 feet, probably.
That guy, his name is Stoss, and he's probably between 5'6" and 5'8". Not a real tall fella.
So then put 3 more feet up above him to get to the nose, probably.
Yeah, if not more, because he's standing close to the camera,
True. So let's
or
put
he's
4
he's a
feet.
little bit closer to the camera. You can see.
So there's 9 feet with a whole bunch of hide hanging on the ground. Granted, a little stretch from the weight hanging from his
Yep,
nose, but
but that's also salted
uh,
where they're shrunk. That bear is fleshed and salted, hanging there, drying and getting ready to be transported.
just insane.
Yeah, because that after the hunt, the bears are rolled up, and then they come back to Petro, to Stas's home, where he finishes them out and ships them back to Moscow. So
Wow.
that's at his house.
How was the expediting?
Easy,
Was it
honestly, like just easy, easy, and cheap too.
really?
Like, yeah, this is another thing I love about this hunt and ties into the value of it. So, getting bears back from Russia, the travel plans, we talked about the travel plans there. It's just like that in reverse order. It's just the reverse of that. The hunting style, we talked on that. Post hunt expediting of trophies. So after the spring season, the bears are flown out of camp with the last hunters by helicopter, and then they're ground transferred back to Petro, to Stas's little village just outside of Petro. And then he finishes fleshing them, salting them, hanging them up, making sure they're stable before they're transported back to Moscow. At that point, once they're in Moscow, they go to a tannery. And I love this because the cost per bear to have those bears tanned in Moscow is $500 a bear with claws. Okay, that would be a $2,000 to $3,000 bill in the United States to have a
Easy.
10-foot plus bear tanned, full body with claws to prepare for a life size mount.
Yeah.
$500 in Russia, and in Russia they don't have the chemical restrictions on tanning like we do in the United States.
Mhm.
So it's actually regarded as a superior process as well.
Wow.
And I already have my bears back from Russia right now. They're in my garage. They came back in great condition, no hair slipping. The tanning is extremely good. I had the taxidermist take a look at them, and he was actually very impressed with how well they flesh. He said that he's never seen a U.S. tannery do as good of a job around the knuckles and claws, getting all the flesh out of the inside of there, as these Russian tanneries did. So superior product, $500 versus $2,000 to $3,000 for the tanning bill. There is some processing, expediting, and permitting that obviously goes on before they're exported from Russia and shipped back to the United States. Again, the outfitter handles all of that. And the only part of it that you see is you see a bill from the outfitter for the tanning, expediting, shipping, and it's about $2,000 a bear to get it back.
Everything combined.
Yeah,
That's not
that's
bad.
pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
And
That's what
it
you get
took,
from States just to have it tanned.
yeah, and it comes back through, let's see, I believe it came through Turkish airline cargo, and landed in Chicago, and then you get a call from D&L Custom in Chicago, and they verify with you again where the bears are being shipped, whether they're being shipped to your home, your business, the taxidermist directly, whatever. They come in a nicely prepared box, all shrink wrapped. The skull is boiled, fleshed, whitened. It needs the skulls need just a little bit of finishing work, but
Right.
I'm kind of a snob because my local European mountain guy uses beetles and his work is just unmatched. But they come in great condition, very well tanned, ready to go, ready to be mounted. And that whole process took about 6 months.
Not bad at all.
So also, U.S. tanneries probably going to be a year out before your taxidermist gets a product to
Mm-hmm.
full body mount. So you will have a full body mounted brown bear from your Russian brown bear hunt faster than if you had done a spring brown bear in Alaska,
Yeah.
start to finish too.
That's just, it's baffling.
Unbelievable, huh?
Yeah. So you're going to do a soft mount beanbag chair with one of them?
That would that would be the ultimate snuggie, wouldn't it? Oh my gosh. It's funny you mentioned that because I had my wolf that I shot in 2022. I
Mm-hmm.
think I had that one soft mounted, and I had my bear rugged, the grizzly from Alaska. And that soft mount is really cool. Like,
Is
I'm
it? I've never
really,
been in one. I've never really,
oh man,
yeah, I've never,
they're so cool. They're
I'm
so cool.
intrigued.
And on, let's call them canine species, soft mounts come out extremely well because they're more of a tube. I actually asked the taxidermist at the time, can you do a black bear or a brown bear, grizzly bear soft mount? And they said, yes, we can, but they end up looking like more of a beanbag because a bear is kind of a round shaped critter, and it doesn't tube out and stay erect and hold itself.
But what a
It's
cool
just
beanbag. It's
that
like
would
the
be a pretty cool
ultimate
beanbag.
beanbag.
That is the ultimate beanbag. So that'd be kind of cool.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
well,
So post
it's
hunt
just been
expediting, super easy,
amazing.
affordable, all of it.
Are there openings?
And
Why are there
there,
openings? Because of the
well,
trap.
Here's the thing, there are still openings for this spring. So, yeah, I have confirmed a camp that I think some hunters had to move out of for this year. So, we actually have a full week for 4 open. Tentatively, we're right in the middle of show season. There's a lot of pending things going on. I think we might have one hunter in there right now, but we had a group have to move from this year to next. And why are there still openings? Well, it's nothing to do with quality, I can assure you. It's more of just people are pretty hesitant to go to Russia still, and it's kind of a leap of faith.
How many guys have you had ready to go on this hunt? It's quite a few, and their wives, understandably, actually turned it down. Quite a few
I
guys,
would
right?
say 1 to 2 people monthly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and a big barrier for guys is just, hey, my family won't support it. They're concerned for my safety. Sorry, I really want to do this trip, and I will do it someday with you, but we got to let things cool off. And
yeah,
the reality and perception of things are two different things when it comes to Russia. I'll say that
yeah.
it was safe, welcoming, zero issues. The people there were wonderful. The customs were easy. People were actually extremely excited to see Americans there. I had multiple people stop me in the airport and ask, "Hey, are you American?" And lo and behold, a 6 foot tall white guy wearing a flannel and hunting boots and jeans kind of stands out. So we had multiple people stop us and just ask, "Hey, are you Americans? What are you doing in Russia? I'm happy to see you, but what are you doing here?"
Right.
And say, "Oh, I'm here for a hunting trip." And they'd say, "Oh, wow, exciting. Are you just getting done hunting, or are you on your way? What are you hunting?" And they're just very welcoming and intrigued by Americans. And I had multiple people say, "Hey, I hope to see more Americans soon. We like Americans here." So don't believe what your media tells you about us, please.
Isn't it weird? It doesn't make sense to me because everybody I've talked to who has gone to Russia has that exact same story. And
Yeah,
it's not at all what you would expect. It's just weird.
it was awesome. I can't wait to go again someday. The brown bear hunt for me though was one of those really big adventures, probably one and done. I mean, that's a lot of time away from work, everything. And the my justification for doing a once and done is once you get there, it's so amazing. You take your first bear and you're like, "Man, this is so incredible. I'd love to do this hunt again." But wait, I can take another bear tomorrow. Yeah. And
What are you going to do with 3 brown bears?
one of them's actually going to go to my friend's showroom. My friend Travis, he just built a brand new custom rifle showroom for his custom rifle business. He wants a brown bear for his showroom, so I'm going to gift that to him to have mounted for his showroom. One of my brown bears I'm going to have rug, and the other I'll have made as a full body mount. But you know, when we started this podcast, I was telling you how I want to move in a couple of years and have a bigger house. I don't have room for a full body brown bear right now, so those
Yeah.
are gonna have to go to the taxidermist and get wetted and vacuum sealed and put in the freezer for probably a couple of years, which is no big deal. I mean, my taxidermist, he waited 30 years to mount his personal safari.
Oh,
You just
really?
yeah, have it tanned, re-wet it, stabilize it, vacuum seal it, put it in the freezer. No big deal. They'll
Right.
last forever that way, but they have to be preserved right. So I'm going to wait a bit to get mine done. Just no reason to have a full body brown bear in my rinky dinky house.
I'm not so sure where I would put a full body brown bear. And my house is fairly open and tall ceilings.
Yeah.
Take a big growth.
Yeah. It'd take up a lot of space, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, so Russia I'd go again, but probably for snow sheep. The bear's one of those one and done, but you never know. I might do the bear again, but it's like, what do you do with that after going a couple times, right? You'd
Yeah.
start donating brown bears at that point.
Yep. Yep. Cool, man. Well, it sounds incredible. If anybody's interested, they should absolutely get in touch with Kyle. Just go to our site and fill out the form, and I'll get you in touch with Kyle.
Perfect. We would love to help someone go to Russia this year because we do have spots available for this year.
Yeah. And are they booking for next year yet? I think they are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just had one of our hunters book for next year this week, actually.
Oh, that's right. Yep. I remember that. Well, man. Well, is that it?
I think that's it, man. Just to recap, we talked about safety, why go to Russia. We talked about the hunt itself, logistics, start to finish, from the travel to the trophy export. We have availability again this year. So if you're interested in going to Russia, please reach out. give us a call, shoot us an email, fill out the form on the site. We are taking bookings for this year, even short notice, and 2027 and 2028 for this trip. And that pretty well caps it off, Cory.
All right, man. Well, super intriguing. It's been almost a year, or maybe it has been
It's been almost a year and we
almost a
haven't.
year. We've refrained from you telling me the entire story this whole time, and it's
Yeah.
been for me not to ask. So
Yeah. It's, it's dumb that I haven't, but one, I'm busy.
no,
Two, we're busy. Three, life just gets in the way, right? But
but
also I
also it's
wanted to.
cool to do it on a podcast too. That was kind of our point. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So I love it. It sounds awesome. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I wanted to tell the whole story when we did get it on the podcast. And so, we've put some snippets on other podcasts of, hey, just hang
Mhm.
tight. We're going to do a podcast on Russia. Hang tight. We're going to do a podcast on Russia. And it's still really hard for me in just an hour or less to really capture how wonderful that hunt was. Like there's just so many cool aspects of that trip that I still feel like I'm not doing it any justice spending an hour talking about it. So it's truly amazing, man.
Yeah, sounds like it.
We both been on a lot of international trips, and that one blew my mind.
Sounds like it. Yeah, sounds
Yeah,
incredible. All right. Well, I will go publish this thing.
cool, man. Well, thanks for carving out your morning, and we'll go about the day. So,
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. See ya.
yeah, see you.